Hello and welcome to Business Lunch on this Monday afternoon. I'm Nisha Poddar and with me is Sonia Shenoy today on the show. But let's begin with the auto sector. Remember, the first trading day of the month is always important for it. So Maruti reported a strong set of sales for the month of September as the domestic sales and exports both show strong growth for the company. In fact, Sonia got in touch with Shashank Srivastav, who's the ED of Sales and Marketing at Maruti, to really understand how the sales were really likely to pan out going forward. Listen in.
The retail is actually just a little lower than the wholesale, and that's expected because of the buildup of stocks that normally you have just before the festive season. So in the industry, the wholesale numbers were at a record high. This is the highest ever monthly dispatches in Indian auto industry ever, 356,000. The retail estimated is around 339,000. So it's a little less. Also, Sonia, in the last 6 months, the wholesale have been higher than retail. And that has led also to a little bit of buildup of stock. 1st April, stock in the industry was about 119,000 and has gone up to almost 238,000 by the current estimates. So yes, a little buildup of stock, but during the festive season, I think we can expect a very good retail, especially when pending bookings are also pretty high.
Okay, very good retail is expected in the festive season. I was talking to the management of M&M and they mentioned to me that higher inflation, higher interest rates could perhaps dampen demand in the months to come. Is that your fear as well? And if yes, which are the pockets that could get hit?
Yes, so actually, if you look at the pending bookings for Maruti itself, for today it's around 412,000, and in the industry estimated to be 800,000. That is one of the reasons why, with the increased production, we have not really felt the difference or the change in the market condition. But I think what we need to measure now is the inflow of fresh bookings rather than the total bookings itself. And there we'll get to know once the production becomes completely normal. And that is expected in a few months' time. We will get to know then what exactly is the market condition. But you are right, in our last interaction, we had also flagged a couple of red flags, to watch for. One of them was inflation and the overall economic growth and the consumer sentiment, which is related to it. Since car buying is a discretionary purchase, sentiments play a large role. And yes, so that is one of the areas we are also a little apprehensive about, but we'll have to wait and watch. And certainly the effect of that would be felt with a lag of at least 2 or 3 months.
So overall, Mr. Srivastava, what kind of reasonable growth do you see for the passenger vehicle industry by the end of this fiscal?
So by the end of this fiscal, the estimates are about 3.8 million against 3.07 million that we saw last year. So that's a pretty strong growth. In fact, if you see H1, Sonia, H1, the figure for the industry is a record 1.937 million, which was 1.387 million last year. That's a growth of about 40% in H1. Clearly, of course, H1 of last year was a little bit affected because of Q1 being affected by the COVID. But overall, I think 3.8 million is the expectation now for the whole fiscal year against 3.07 million. That's a pretty good growth, I would say.
Okay. The response to the Brezza and the Vitara has been pretty good so far. Just wanted to understand a little bit about how the SUV space is shaping up, considering that, it'll be a while before you sort of get your SUV market share up and running. But what is the situation on the ground currently, and what are the expectations over the next few months?
I think the trend for greater consumer proclivity to buy SUVs continues. In the month of September, we saw almost 43% of the market being SUV. And that obviously was held by the new Brezza as well as the Grand Vitara. The Brezza for the entry SUV segment is doing very well. In fact, Brezza last month also was the highest selling SUV, about more than 15,000 units. In fact, the number 3 model in the industry overall. first being Alto. So Brezza has been doing very well. The mid SUV, you are right, we have just started with the Grand Vitara. We had a wholesale of almost 4,800 units this month. That's also pretty large, I would say. But we are just beginning, and as we ramp up production, we hope to get larger volumes from the SUV space and hence a larger market share as well.
So what has this done for your overall market share? What does the market share stand at now? And what was it, say, about 6 months ago?
So it's gone up. It's started climbing up again. We are close to 43% now, as against actually last year, September was bad, but we had been in that range of 40.5 for most of the year thus far. And of course, it's not just the SUVs. We also had constraints of production, as you know. Obviously, every OEM had it, but we had a little bit more because of the wide portfolio that we have. And as a result, even today, we are not able to produce all the vehicles that we want. But having said that, yes, I would expect the market share to go up, especially if our SUVs continue to do well, as it looks like.
Okay. Are all the supply side issues behind us now? Because, the word from the other passenger vehicle makers like M&M is that this is still an ongoing challenge and it will take a while, maybe 3 or 4 months before all the supply side issues are, over and done with. How is the situation at your end?
Semiconductor supplies have been getting better, but I have also been mentioning, Sonia, that it also depends on a lot on what type of vehicle you are able to produce. So there are also a side-by-side, the pending bookings, 412,000 for Maruti Suzuki that I mentioned. Now, that is because we have not been able to produce vehicles exactly as per the underlying demand pattern. As a result, some models have a very low waiting period or no waiting period, and others have a very large waiting period. And that's the issue which can go away only when the semiconductor issue is fully solved. I would say it's around that 94-95% mark that we have solved that issue. And going forward, I agree with the M&M when they said it's going to take a few more months before we can be 100%, saying that we can produce whatever we want.
Okay, that's the word coming in from Maruti. The stock is under pressure. There's some profit taking across the auto space today. But Maruti is saying that yes, this month's numbers are looking good, but there are some headwinds, some red flags like higher inflation, higher interest rates that perhaps could dampen demand. We'll get into a quick break on that note. When we come back, we'll get you details from the much-awaited launch of 5G services which kicked off on Saturday. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back, folks. Thanks for tuning in to Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18. The market has not recovered as such. The Bank Nifty is still down over 400 points. So you can say it's down but not out. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi flagged off the 5G era in the country on Saturday in the presence of telecom sector leaders Mukesh Ambani, Airtel Sunil Bharti Mittal and Vodafone Idea's Kumar Mangalam Birla. Jio has promised 5G services across the country by December 2023, while Airtel became the first telecom operator to launch the service in 8 cities, and Vodafone Idea said that it would begin its 5G journey soon, but does not have a timeline just yet. All right, let's also hear out what Mukesh Ambani, Airtel Sunil Bharti Mittal and Vodafone Idea's Kumar Mangalam Birla had to say at the launch event.
As an industry, we will ensure that we have the highest quality and the most affordable rates that anyone else has in the world. Today, I want to reiterate Jio's commitment to deliver 5G to every town, every taluka, and every tehsil of our district by December of 2023.
मैं आपको यकीन दिलाना चाहता हूं कि भारती के सब लोग और एयरटेल के सब लोग पूरे जोर से, पूरी अपना हिम्मत से 5G को देश में फैलाएंगे और 2023 मार्च तक काफ़ी शहरों में और 2024 मार्च तक सारे देश में 5G का फैलाव करेंगे। और आज जब आप लॉन्च करेंगे इस 5G को, तो 8 शहरों में आज 5G एयरटेल की तरफ से उपलब्ध होगा। दिल्ली, वाराणसी, मुंबई, बेंगलोर और कई शहरों में।
We will soon begin the 5G rollout journey. We will leverage our strong presence in rural India, our enterprise customers, our technology partners, and the global experience of the Vodafone Group for progressively rolling out our 5G networks and services in the coming period. Today, we are greatly honored that our beloved Prime Minister will soon launch the VI 5G use case demonstration.
All right, it was a grand event with all the big shots from the telecom industry. Well, my colleague Ashmit Kumar also caught up with telecom Secchi K. Raja-Raman to really understand the challenges that telcos will have to really contend with while rolling out the 5G services across the country. In fact, the ministry says that the groundwork has already been prepared for the 5G rollout in the country. Listen in.
The last several years, I think careful work has been done in terms of preparing the ground for 5G. Because essentially there are a number of things that need to be put in place. Number one, development of technology, starting with the 5G test bed in 2018. And thereafter, I think a lot of work has been done on the right of way. Because essentially, if you want to install 5G cells, especially small cells, a lot of policies have to be in place, especially with state governments and local bodies. So a lot of work has been done in amending our rules, I think, and getting the state governments on board. And I should also appreciate the great work done by state governments and local bodies in enabling amendments to their policies and also training officials, bringing in IT systems. They have linked their IT systems to ours. So I think today the average time taken for an ROW clearance is about 7 days, as against about 200 days maybe a couple of years back. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that there also is a lot of work has been done on standards, and especially in development of standards. There's this 5GI which has got incorporated in release 17 of 3GPP mobile standards, but also in releasing standards which are required. So the TEC has worked on it. They have released when they are in the process of release of the standards. Similarly, there are security standards which are required for 5G. There also, I think 11 of them have been released, I think yesterday. So I think therefore a lot of work has been done. Similarly, I think there's need for skill development. So I think we have been intensely working with the Telecom Sector Skill Council in targeting the specific skills that are required for 5G. So a number of qualification packs have been developed for 5G in specific, and the training for the skills that are required is also on the way. Sure. So besides this, I think a lot of work has been done in unlocking spectrum. That is I would say the most significant, biggest achievement that has been done in the last several years. The spectrum has been reformed from other users and has been put to good use, and now the auction has revealed that the demand for spectrum is very, very live, and therefore we believe that there will be greater opportunities and demand for spectrum, and we are working on unlocking more bands as well, ma'am.
So as far as the rollout itself is concerned, we were speaking to the minister. He said that we're looking at a capex of somewhere about 2.5 to 3 lakh crore rupees. These are very large numbers. The reason I asked this question is that even as we speak, one of the 3 companies is struggling to even meet its current dues. Do you think this will be a challenge, the size of the quantum of the investment that is now required?
the capex that is required is left to the operators, because obviously they know what kind of technology they would deploy. I think as long as it's compatible with the standards. So they have all gone for different technologies. So we are sure that the market has enough wisdom to steer around this issue. They all have this minimum rollout obligation. So, and I'm sure that the way they've announced, I'm sure that they will be well ahead of the target.
One last question, sir. One of the mantras that the Prime Minister identified was affordability. Going ahead, do you see the cheap data that we have in the country, that trend continuing even with the introduction of 5G, or do you anticipate some degree of perhaps pricing premium, which going forward could be a result?
No, see, at the end of the day, the government as a policy maker would want affordability as one of the foundations. So this is what the Honorable Prime Minister also mentioned. So therefore, we would be supporting the industry to achieve that objective. So the policies and the reforms that have been done last September and the various other measures that we continue to take is to chip away at the cost of doing business, to enable them to stay affordable for the public at large.
Okay, well, shifting focus to gas then, prices have been hiked to $8.57 per MMBTU for the second half of FY23 compared to $6.1 in the first half. After the hike, domestic prices for gas have now hit the highest level since 2014. The government-appointed Kirit Parikh panel is expected to submit their report on the pricing formula by mid-next month. Earlier today, we caught up with the man himself, Kirit Parikh. Let's hear out his views.
Committee was given just 15 days to suggest what should be the price of APM gas. APM gas is the gas that comes out of ONGC and OIL fields, which were earlier allotted to them on a nomination basis. So APM gas is a small fraction of the total gas consumed in the country. Formula was more or less suggested in 2012 and somewhat supported in 2016 report of the secretaries, which really tries to give the same price to Indian producers of APM gas as prices producers get in international market. And I think we are examining this, and we will come up with our ideas on the subject in a month's time, latest by end of October.
All right, on that note, let's slip into a short breather on Business Lunch for now. But remember, the United Kingdom performs a policy U-turn, withdraws its earlier announced tax cut from 45% to 40%. And we tell you more on that one on the other side. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Business Lunch. A quick look at the markets. And yes, markets, after shedding some bit, is now trying to really recover. So 17,044 levels at the moment for Nifty 50, less than 50 points cut at the moment. And remember, they had gone down up to 0.45% lower. As far as Bank Nifty is concerned, that's the one which is really ruling the direction in which the market is really going, because it was down more than 1% and now 0.8%. So keep an eye out on some of the big financials like Kotak, Axis, as well as even some of the others like HDFC Bank, which are really bearing on the sentiment. As far as the losers are concerned, Adani Enterprises, Eicher Motors, keep that on your radar. Moving on then, the United Kingdom, which had earlier announced tax cuts to the tune of about 45%, has performed a U-turn and rolled back the tax cut from 45% to 40% after criticism coming in from institutions like the IMF and the European Central Bank. In fact, Lata Venkatesh is right here to tell us this development and its impact. Lata.
That's the key point, a U-turn on the top bracket tax, which was cut from 40 to 45%. Now, we must remember that this was one among a bunch of tax cuts, which was their plan to invigorate the economy. The other ones were that basic income tax also would be reduced to 19%. It was anyway going to be reduced from 24. They advanced it to 2023. And besides that, there were property tax and stamp duty cuts as well. Now, the biggest one that drew flack was this top bracket tax cut from 45 to 40%. This meant that everybody who earned £150,000, who were originally paying 45%, will start paying 40% from this year, which was the tax bracket for the £50,000 plus income guys. Now, the problem is that, the income, all these liabilities were, the 45% group was contributing to 36% of the total income tax receipts of the government in the current year. So reducing that would have meant a very big hole. The tax cuts were criticized by IMF and ECB a little obliquely because, there was unfunded expenditure. The expenditure was particularly high this year because of the energy subsidies that UK was providing. And only in 6 months, UK would have had to pay £60 billion only for this, energy subsidies. And at that time, the tax cuts taking away money was worrying the market, because that would mean the UK government would come and borrow more. The other problem was, besides the UK borrowing more, the BOE will have to increase interest rates, because at a time when inflation is running at 10%, if you are going to put more money in the hands of people, they will spend more. It would be even more inflationary, and therefore the BOE will have to hike rates. So, there was a steep reaction in the market. Government will borrow more and the central bank will cut more. That meant that bond yields would go up. And that's what happened September 22nd, the day before the tax cut. It was 3.5%, the 10-year yield. It went to 4.5% on September 27th. On September 28th, the Bank of England had to actually step in and announce that it is buying bonds because the market had become so unstable. It said it would buy £65 billion of bonds. There was a similar reaction on the pound. It was you needed $1.12 to buy a pound on September 22nd before the tax cuts, and it became as cheap as $1.07 needed to buy a pound. That was on September 27th. Thereafter, there has been some recovery with the BOE intervening. Now it is almost back to 1.12.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. So UK flip-flopping there with its policies. But moving on, the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh inducted the first batch of the homegrown light combat at the Jodhpur Air Force Station today. The indigenously developed attack helicopter is based on the Dhruv utility helicopter built by Hindustan Aeronautics and is equipped with a number of stealth features, self-protection suites and other measures for better survivability. The weapon system is expected to be deployed across the spectrum, having proved itself in the desert climate of Rajasthan as well as the sub-zero temperature in Siachen.
All right, let's get you some updates from the sporting world now. And it's good news for cricket lovers like me in India, as India has clinched 3-match series by defeating South Africa by 16 runs in a high-scoring second T20 in Guwahati. Now, KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma's opening 96-run partnership helped India set a massive target of 237 for South Africa. Quinton de Kock and David Miller's 106 knock went in vain after the hosts restricted the South Africans to 221 for 3. These matches are always exciting, Sonia.
Absolutely, and yesterday was a Sunday, right? So sitting and watching the match with my family, it was a lot of fun. And I think in the first half itself, you knew that India had, taken it away from South Africa.
But you never know in T20 matches. I've seen the tables turn very quickly also.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the thrill of it, I guess.
Yes.
Well, on that note, we will wrap up with this edition of Business Lunch. Thanks a lot for watching, but don't go anywhere. Mid-Cap Radar comes up in just moments from now.